time synergy.
As promised, here is a video showing how I made my Nifty from start to finish. Typically, I forgot to back up my photos that I took ages ago when I first started this cosplay, so I'm having to use the TikTok video that I uploaded just showing that work in progress. So sorry about that. Okay, so I actually bought bed sheets to make the fabric side. A little cosplay hack. A lot of the time when you want really good quality cotton, just buy Egyptian cotton bed sheets. One was a really cheap one, but the rest were Egyptian cotton. So the skirt part of the dress was a simple circle skirt, as you can see here. They're relatively simple to make, but let me know if you want me to actually talk through it in another video. So I utilised a Lolita blouse pattern for the bodice, and I just adjusted it to fit as I went, making the arms a bit larger than I needed to be to get the puff. For some reason, I also convinced myself that I needed lace on the ends of the skirt and the arms, and by the time I'd done it, I realised it didn't have that in the actual picture, but it looked nice, so I left it that way. So, you know, these things happen. So next up, I made the correct shaping for the collar. I pleated the parts of the arm that were going to connect to the bodice, and I made a little poodle. So I made this basically by drawing a pattern by hand, and then putting some interfacing on the back and then appliquing it on, and there it is. I did the same with the lead. I put a little bit of interfacing at the back, and there you go. For some reason I took 0 pictures of the work in progress for the penny, but that was cut out by hand and by eye. I didn't use a pattern for that, which is why I had to adjust it several times to get it the right length and how I wanted it to look. To make the detailing, I just used acrylic paint. Initially, I made them quite small, but in the end, I made them much larger because it just didn't look right as small as I'd done them. You'll note that I later attached arms, black arms, to the dress. Those are just some dance tights, which I've cut to length and sewn into the arm. The beauty of dance tights is they actually have the heel cut out so that dancers can take their feet in and out of the ballet tights. And this meant that I could put those over my gloves that I will show you how I made next. So the gloves were very simple. I just drew around one of my hands on some black stretch fabric with some tailor's chalk, and then I pinned around it to within an inch of its life, sewed around that line, and then cut off the excess fabric. I found that the easiest way to do it. I finished off the openings of the gloves with some elasticated bias binding, and I found that was quite a good way of doing it. Weren't exactly the same size, but they did come off fine, so I was happy with them. Next up is the wig. So I'd not done this newfangled wig styling before, but I had this old wig that didn't have a fringe or anything, or bangs if you're American, that was in reasonably the right colour. I ordered some bright yellow hair extensions, and we gave it a go. As you can see, I parted everything, I cut off the back, and then I covered it. I actually covered it in some wadding before I put the felt over the top, but I had some red felt and I felt that that would be great. Then I got some aluminium bendable wire and I started making the structure that I needed of the wig. Where I could, I started gluing on sort of the base part of the style, and basically started gluing on the hair from there. I'd start at the top and I'd glue the bottom as well. I was very new to this, so I don't think it was as tidy as it could be, but I'm pretty proud of how well this came out, given this is my first go at this style of wig. Just add, so the bit with the yellow bit on and the upper sort of structure was added on after making sure the hair was all on the lower structures, and there was a bit more hair added here and there later on, just before I actually wore it. But yeah, I was quite proud of this one. Okay, part 3, making the eye. So my first attempt, I used Warbler's Crystal Art. You get it really, really hot in hot water. It will then go clear, and then you can mold it. As you can see, I did some measurements of my eyes, of the height of the wig, and then I started drafting the base that the lens was going to go onto. Um, and there is already a video on my TikTok showing some pictures of this process. Then I got to the moulding bit and it was clear that it wasn't going to be see-through. So, epic fail. Okay, time for attempt 2. This time we're going to try and do it out of resin. I had a bowl cast and I kind of jimmied it with air dried clay just to try and get the right shape so I didn't have to do too much cutting and sanding once it was cast. I then used another cast that was for making small candle holders, and I used it one way for the main ring, and then I popped it inside out and used the smaller one to make the pupil of the eye. While the colours turned out absolutely brilliant, unfortunately it was not see-through, so another epic fail. And that brings us to attempt 3. We've gone back to the warbler, but more traditional warbler this time, still clear. In order to shape it, I used a heat gun and I used a ball to help me shape it around it with a heat resistant glove. I made a new base for it, and once I was happy with the shaping, I then glued it to the base. I then painted it with glass paint, and took a couple of goes to figure out where I was going to make the eye holes. Which after someone pointed out that it was obvious they were there, I did fill them in with some Sharpie to make it less obvious. I also later found out that you can actually dye the materials first, which was kind of annoying. And if I make it again, I will definitely do that next time. Then glued on some really thin craft foam and curled it with a heat gun and then painted it for the eyelashes. And I was quite happy with how it came out. Last but not least, the knife. This was very last minute that I decided to make this, but it was very simple. I kind of made some measurements and drew it onto some reasonably thick craft foam. I cut it out twice and then I put the aluminium wire I used on the wig between just to give it some kind of stability, although it does make it bendy, but hey ho. Glued those two pieces together and then I used air dry craft foam in order to sort of shape it and so on, because my stuff wasn't working properly to sand it. And just as an added bonus, I also used glow-in-the-dark paint as part of the detailing, so woohoo! Before I forgot to put my scarf on at the first con I wore it at. Here it is here. That was made out of just 2 triangles of black fabric sewn together, leaving a small gap so I can turn it inside out and do a top stitch and then close up the little hole, and there you have a neckerchief. And that's a brief overview of how I made my Nifty. This picture, to finish off, was taken by Roger Hathaway Photography and edited at the event that I went to, which was UK CGF in Exeter. Thank you for listening / watching, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll try to answer them. Bye!
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that's the nicest thing that anyone's ever done for me.